Welcome to this video on the 7 tips and tricks you need to know to create and manage your Microsoft Teams meetings. So we're going to go through some really useful top tips when you are creating your meetings to make sure that you are as productive as possible in those meetings and you can collaborate effectively, and then how you can manage those meetings to make sure everyone's focused and you are all interacting during that meeting and getting as much out of it as possible. So Microsoft Teams is a tool that I use. It's part of the Microsoft application. I use it for personal and I also use it for work. I have a number of meetings every day, some that I manage and some that I attend. And they can be a little bit frustrating if they go on for long and there's no agenda there. So we're going to cover things like that, which will really help. And just like every other Microsoft app, it is constantly changing. So it's really important to keep going on and having a look and making sure you know where that functionality has moved to, if it's moved, and also what's available so that you and everyone else gets the most out of it. So let's jump straight into it and start looking at these 7 tips and tricks that will really help you. And like I said at the beginning, we're going to start before the meeting is even active. So we're going to talk about some tips and tricks that you can do when you are creating Microsoft Teams meetings. So you can create them in Outlook and then go and edit them in Teams, but I'm in Teams, so I thought I might as well do this. So I'm just going to double click anywhere, and I'm just going to make this the right size for my recording so you can see this screen. Okay, and the 2 tips I want to talk to you about before you start the meeting, when you're creating it, I'm just going to add in a title. I'm just going to invite someone. Let's get someone on there. I'm going to leave it as that time. I'm not going to worry about too much. The first tip I want to mention to you is adding a loop component. So you can see add meeting notes is there. If I click on that, what that's going to do is generate a loop component, which is a nice bit of interactivity that you can add to a meeting in order to be able to put your agenda, your notes, and any tasks. If I scroll down, you'll see them there. It's already there waiting for you. It's accessible to everyone. You can collaborate before, during, and after the meeting. And you can also copy this and see this in other places. You can copy it into a Teams chat. You can put it in a OneNote. You can share it in many other places in Microsoft and it will sync up really nicely. But what this is really great is making sure you've got that agenda and you can share that with everyone. People can add topics to it. You've got your meeting notes in one place, and then any tasks that anyone is allocated during the meeting or even before, then they can be in there, and that will sync up to your planner and your to-do, so you know if you've been allocated a task, then it's always going to be reminding you of that. So you can do this before you've even created a meeting. You can come in and edit a meeting and add that in afterwards, and it's just super simple, clicking on adding at the bottom, and that will create your loop for you. If you do want to make a copy of it, just hover over that little icon there and click on copy component, and then you can drop that into another part of the Microsoft applications, and like I said, it will sync up really nicely. If I scroll up, the second tip and trick here I want you to think about is making sure everyone has the right access in your meetings. So if you have lots of people in your meetings, you might want to stop people from being able to share and do other things, and you do that by clicking in the options. So on the right hand side here, you can see I've got the option to define who can bypass the lobby. And the lobby is where people get stuck before they join the meeting. So they have to be given access. And that's usually relevant for external people. It might be relevant if you're doing an interview using Microsoft Teams and you want the interviewee to wait outside before you're ready to bring them in. So it's just a little bit more professional and easy. So you can define that here. And you can also record and transcribe automatically. But if you want more options, just click on the more options and that will pop up for you, and you can see on the left hand side, I've got a number of different sections that I can go into and have a look, but I can just scroll down as well if I want to. Now, depending on your organisation, some of these may be locked out, they may be set. If you're using personal teams personally, you might have more flexibility. But you can see there we've got that security piece. People dialing in can bypass the lobby. You've got allow mic for attendees. So if you've got a big meeting and you want everyone to be silent and use the chat, then you can turn off mic and you can even turn off camera. Sometimes that's useful because the bandwidth might be quite slow. You might get a very poor experience if a lot of people have got their cameras on and they're coming into everyone else. So that might be helpful, and sometimes it can just be really distracting. So there's some really nice settings there. You can decide if you want the meeting chat on or off, if you want a Q&A, if you want to allow reactions, and also if you want an attendance report at the end. So you can see who came, who joined, when they came and when they left, which is quite useful if you want to record any attendance. So there's some super function here. And then also finally at the bottom you've got roles here as well. So you can define who you want to be able to be the co-organizer, who you want to be able to present. So if you just want to lock it down to you and a couple of other people who can present their screen, then you can do that in this section here, which is really useful. And finally, recording is down at the bottom as well, so you can automatically record and transcribe, so you don't have to remember to click the button. So this, you can set up everything you need to make sure the experience is great for you and the attendees before you've even created that meeting, which is super useful. And like I said, just think about the times, the different types of meetings you might have, where you've got a big project one where you just want to demo something, or you've got a big town hall meeting and you want to lock it down so that there can be some conversations, but just in chat and Q&A, and everyone's got the camera off, the microphone off. There's only certain people that can present. Some really great options there. You've got automatic record functionality, which is super useful to make sure anyone can pick this up if they don't, if they can't attend or they just want a refresher. And then remember back to things like interviews, where you can set up a lobby and then you can bring them in whenever they want to. So some really great options there. When you've made any changes that are relevant to your example, you can click on save. That will just save them into your meeting that you're creating. And then you can, again, you're back in here. You've got everything set up you need to, and you can just send that meeting invite out. Now, when that meeting starts, every setting that you've set up there will be relevant. So if you've locked people from doing certain things, they will not be able to do it, which is super useful. There are some of those things that you can do whilst you're in a meeting. You can add that loop component while you're in a meeting, and you can change the settings as well. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this meeting. I'm going to join it so we can see what this looks like. And again, let me just pull this so that it matches the recording space, so you can see all of the detail. So I'm going to click on join now. I'm going to turn my microphone off just because I'm recording this, and I'm going to click on join now. And I'm in here, and because I added that loop component at the beginning, you can see it's appeared there on the right hand side. It's the notes tab, so it's not the chat section. Just ignore where it says microphone is muted. It's not the chat section or anything, it's its own section, and you've got the agenda, the notes and the follow-up tasks, so you can go in and manage those. And any other settings that you added before you created this meeting will be relevant as well, so anything will be locked down if you've asked for it. So if you haven't automatically set your meeting up to record, you may at this point, now you've started the meeting, you may want to record, so that anyone who can't attend or anyone who just wants to watch this back for reference, especially if there's some really useful things going on in this meeting, you want to make sure that it is being recorded. And to do that, you're just going to go into more, record, and start recording. And that may take a few seconds to kick in, so just bear with it. When it does, it's going to let everyone know they're being recorded, and you'll get that red dot so you know this meeting is now being recorded. And I can just get rid of that box. So that's the third top tip there as well. Try and make sure, if you haven't automatically set to record, that you do as soon as possible so that anyone watching back gets the full experience like they were in your meeting, but maybe they just couldn't attend. Sometimes you work across time zones and it just doesn't work very well for everyone to jump on the same meeting all the time. So that's another top tip there. Some other things I want to go through. So the fourth one here is, if I go into people, a really great useful one that I use sometimes in those three dots is I lock the meeting. So if you're talking about something, if you're in an interview, or you're talking about something really private, or you just don't want any distractions, if people haven't joined at that time, you just want to lock it down. Sometimes this is great if you are delivering a training session on Teams, and like if you were delivering in a room, you wouldn't want people walking in half an hour late. You don't want people joining the meeting half an hour late. They're going to have to attend a different session. So what you can do is lock the meeting and stop anyone else from joining. So this is, again, is a really great bit of functionality, so you don't get any distractions. You don't have to go back and talk about what you were doing before. Anyone else who wasn't able to attend before you locked it can watch the recording that you've already set up in the previous tip. So a really, really useful bit of functionality there. Another thing I want to talk to you about, so another really useful top tip here, is get the right sharing option. So if you're sharing your screen or you're sharing anything, you want to make sure you choose the right option. So let me just click on share and we can have a look at what those options are. So at the top, if you're sharing a video in the meeting, you want to include sound. Otherwise, they'll be able to see the video, but they won't be able to hear it because it won't push the sound through the meeting. And then if you are presenting and also sharing your camera, presenter mode might be really useful for you so people can see you, but also can see the content that you are sharing. The one that I really want to talk about though, because this is one that a lot of people get confused sometimes, is do I want to share a screen or do I want to share a window? Now there's different times when you might want to do this. So generally when I'm delivering a training session, I might be flicking around different applications. I've already removed or closed down anything that's private and confidential. It's a habit that I have so that I'm not going to share anything that I shouldn't be sharing. And it means I can flick seamlessly between different things on my computer. So I tend to share the whole screen. If you are just sharing one application, and you may have some private and confidential information on another part of your system, then the window might be the best option for you. Just remember, if you're sharing a window, you need to remember that you're only sharing that, and if you flip on to something else, you'll have to stop sharing and reshare the new window. So it really depends on what you are working on, what you are sharing during your meeting, and think about which option is going to work best for you, but is also going to feel super seamless to your attendees as well when you're sharing content in your meeting. If you haven't used Microsoft Whiteboard, that's a really great way that you can collaborate on a meeting, on a whiteboard, and people can add in their thoughts and images and all sorts of great stuff to put loads of content together. If you are on a meeting that's got people in a room and also on a call and you've got a whiteboard or something on the wall that you're creating, you can also share your content from a camera so that the people attending on the call can see that information, which is a really useful bit of functionality to try and keep that engagement going, which is really hard when you've got people in the room and also people on a call. So that's a really useful function as well. And then you've got PowerPoint Live if you're sharing a presentation, Excel Live if you are collaborating on a document. And if you scroll down, you'll be able to, you can't see it on my screen, but you can browse your computer and you can share any other document that you have available. So definitely think about which sharing option might work best for you. What I tend to do and every so often as well, this might be useful for everyone, is I just go and start a random meeting and I just double check that the sharing options that I have access to haven't changed and I'm comfortable using them as well, especially if you're presenting to a big group or you're delivering a training session or something, or you are interviewing for a role. Then just make sure you're super confident that the sharing option works. You might need to allow it in the settings on your computer, and also you can seamlessly move around so you look super professional. So you not just want to look there as to which option works best for you, you want to make sure that you can use it and you can look professional while you're doing it. So another top tip here is get everyone to use the chat to collaborate. So remember, right back to the beginning, we talked about those meeting options and we could turn chat on and off. We could add Q&A if we wanted to. Something really great about Teams meetings is there's a nice little chat function here. I'm going to move this up a little bit so you can see the bottom part of where I'm sharing. And when you click on chat, everyone can see these messages in here. If you want to point to someone specific, remember it's the @ button. You can do anyone who's on the meeting. You can do @everyone, which is super useful. You also have formatting options. You can send reactions. You can add more loop components here if you want to as well. I'm going to click on that because that is super useful. You can add even more bullet lists. You can add Kanban boards, paragraphs, Q&As you can add in here as a loop component as well, tables, voting tables, all sorts of ways that you can interact in a meeting within the chat. There's more and more every time. So again, I think it's really useful to come into a meeting every so often by yourself and just have a play around with the functionality so you can see what's going on. But chat is a really great way, and I would encourage you to use that within your meetings, especially if you've locked down the audio and you don't want people talking over each other. Chat's a really great way to get people interacting. Ask questions in there, put your loop components in there, get people talking and putting information in. And remember, you've got that notes tab where you're going to put the notes and the agenda and the tasks, but chat can be where you start those conversations. You can share documentation and images in there and really start to work and collaborate together in chat. Finally, the last top tip I would suggest is use the raise hands and the react ones to really, again, keep that interaction going. So if you do have those microphones turned on, but you've asked everyone to go on mute, remember you can, if you are in the people tab, if you've got people with their microphone open, you will see in the three dots, you will see mute all, so you will be able to mute everyone. Just in case you've got someone who hasn't put their microphone on mute and they're chatting about something else, which absolutely happens on big meetings that I attend. Doesn't matter who you are, you'll always get someone who's forgotten or doesn't realise they're on microphone, and it's super distracting. So really great way there. But also, if you don't want people just talking over each other, you can suggest they raise their hand, and it will tell you which order. So you can see a number next to my little hand there. I raised my hand first. So if I was managing a meeting and multiple people had their hand raised, you could pick them off in the order. And if that person doesn't drop their hand, click on the three dots to lower all hands. And that's a great way of making sure that people don't interrupt each other, don't talk over each other, but you're also getting people to interact and ask questions verbally rather than in the chat if that is the preference. And you've got the react options as well that just add a little bit of fun, add a little bit of interaction in there, and it makes sure you can see that people are listening if they're reacting. You can ask them to use the reaction buttons. You can get a thumbs up from everyone, a clap from everyone, or you can just use it to gauge people's feelings and things like that as you're going through a meeting. So we've gone through some top tips and tricks there. Like I said, Microsoft Teams changes all the time, so it's really useful to go in and have a play around with it. And you can just start a meeting. If I just pull away from this meeting a second, You can start a meeting at any point in the calendar just by clicking Meet Now, and it will open up a meeting with just you in it. You can invite other people, or you can just stay in there by yourself, just a bit like I am. I'm in a meeting by myself right here, and I can go and practice and play around with all the functionality because things change constantly. So it's really useful every so often to go and have a play around with it. Remember, you can add your loop components, your agenda, your notes and tasks at the beginning, and you can edit the options so you can lock what people can do down, which is super useful for interviews or big meetings. When you're in the meetings, you can start the recording so that you can share that with people who can't attend, or for just a refresher. You can lock the meeting when you're in there to stop people coming in, which is really useful if you're delivering training or something where you just don't want any distractions. And because you're recording the meeting, then people can go back and record it afterward and view it afterwards if they need to. Really have a think about those sharing options, and from a professional point of view, have a practice at them so they're super smooth and seamless. It's really important for me in my role that I know those sharing options, I select the right one. If you are sharing your screen, just make sure anything that you don't want to pop up has been closed down. Like Outlook and things like that generally get closed down so that it doesn't pop up and distract. Or I have that on a different screen if I've got multiple screens going on. Encourage everyone to use the chat and really play around with those options. You got loop components, you can format, you can react in there, and you can use the @ sign to direct a message to a person. So you can get some really nice conversations and interactions going in there. And a few of the nice little functions that I added in the 7th tip and trick is that raise hand and the reactions to, again, make sure that people are not talking over each other, but you're getting that interaction, you're getting that feeling, you're getting an idea of what people are thinking about, and people have got the ability to ask questions. And what's really great about the raising hands is you can see who's raised their hand in what order. I think that is super useful when you are managing a meeting of any type. So some great top tips there. Really do have a play around with those. Just start a meeting and have a go at it. See which ones are going to work best for you. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and let me know which tips work best for you in the comments.